My name is Robert Crandall, and I play a marginal part in the following story. I am attempting to post on this site for scary stories on behalf of the author, my friend Jonathan Talley. John is currently serving a prison sentence for manslaughter. I hope that seeing this published in a public forum will help ease his mind. His mental state has deteriorated considerably, as you'll soon see. I am not a superstitious person, so I have no trouble seeing it as the hallucinations of a mentally disturbed individual. If you are superstitious, I recommend not reading it. So here it is, reproduced word for word, from John's letters that he had wrote to me while in solitary confinement. He has pleaded repeatedly, almost desperately, to post it on some internet site where it'll be read. As of last week, he has been threatening to kill himself if he is not able to see it published on the web. For the record, I did not do what John accuses me of at the beginning of the story. To John, you will see this soon, and I hope that it brings you some measure of relief. I should tell you now, dear reader, I'm writing this story from prison. Solitary confinement. I have been in solitary confinement for a few days now, and it is for the best. I only hope that this reaches as many people as possible. And these are the events that happened to me leading up to the murder in my incarceration. Whether you believe me or not is your business, but it is the truth. This is New York City. I'm getting back home late at night after a fine evening of friends and drinking. It starts to rain heavily, but luckily I've made it to the subway station. So I go down to the subway, I get into the car and it's empty. One stop later, one person gets on and sits in the middle of the car, right on my side. A young guy in his early 20s. He is sitting with strangely straight posture, staring at nothing. Head slightly tilted. A kind of wild look in his hair and his eyes, like he hadn't slept in a long time. I put my earbuds in to listen to music on my phone. Led Zeppelin, nice. 2 or 3 stops later, I happen to glance up and notice strangely that the distance between this guy and myself seems to have lessened. He's still sitting the same way, back completely straight, head tilted, eyes wide and staring at nothing. This is weird, but maybe I misjudged the distance before. I turn back to my phone. 1 stop later, I look up and he is only 3 seats away from me. Okay, now this is getting creepy. And I know this guy was getting closer to me for some reason. What the hell? I say. Look dude, there's plenty of seats on the train. I don't want any trouble. He turns to look at me briefly. There's that wildness in his eyes. And he turns back, facing forward. I'm watching this guy closely now. Suddenly I notice that his clothes are completely dry. He had gotten on 3 stops after me, while it was still raining. And yet he had no umbrella and was still completely dry. I could only conclude that he had not come from above. He had been down in the subway tunnels the entire time. At first I'm thinking that he might be homeless, but his jacket looks too new, and he isn't dirty. Oh well, it is New York. Sometimes there are weirdos on the train. He is kind of thin and pale, and I'm confident that I could take him in a fight. But man, I don't want this shit tonight. And I'm still a little dizzy from all the booze. Suddenly I hear a loud gasp and the guy turns and stares at me with a horrified look on his face. What? I shout. Part of me is getting pissed off at this asshole, yet I still feel a shiver down my spine. His face is locked in a tableau of fear, like the exact instant when something terrifying surprises you. This guy is not acting, he's afraid. Seconds go by, feeling like hours. The guy's face is still completely frozen in fear, and by now I'm sure that he has some kind of mental issue. And then he whispers something hurriedly. This in Bindu. What? I say again. This in Bindu, this in Bindu, this in Bindu. His whispering is fast and insistent, but I still can't make out what he's saying. Speak slower, man. He gets slightly closer and he leans in, still looking afraid. This in Bindu. This man bind you. This a man bind you. Dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? I'm shouting now. He grabs me by the shoulders and my body shakes from an adrenaline rush. There's a man behind you. The guy whispers in my ear and then lets go, leaning back. His face is still wild, but now it's different. Like he's no longer scared for himself. He's scared for me. I can't help it. This incident is so weird, so creepy. I turn and I look over my shoulder. Of course, there's nothing there. And then I turn back and I see nothing. The guy is completely gone. There is nobody in the subway car but me. I am utterly alone. Somehow in the time that I looked back, the guy must have ran into the next car. I hurry over and I look, but all I see are two elderly ladies who give me a weird look. Shivering, I sit down and I think. Now, dear reader, I'm a logical man. I'm not religious, I really need to see something to believe it. I don't believe in the supernatural. In fact, I'm sure many of these supernatural incidents have perfectly logical explanations based in reality, even if they have yet to be discovered. The problem is that most people want to believe, and so they do. There is only one illogical explanation for this vanishing, wild-eyed person. Someone had spiked my drink. It was all just a hallucination. It had to be. As soon as I had gotten off the subway and I was above ground, I called my friend Rob on the phone. He was at the bar with me and was known to be a joker. I wouldn't have put it past him to slip me something. Dude, Rob, what the fuck? I said as he answered. Rob pretended like he had no idea what was going on. You give me some acid or shit? I was fucking hallucinating all the way back home. John, man, I really have no idea what you're talking about, I swear. Finally, I considered the possibility that he's actually telling the truth. There were other people at the bar tonight. Fine, man, but if I find out that you're messing with me, I'm gonna freaking kill you. And I hung up. I called everybody I knew who had been at the bar that evening, and finally I called Dave. Of course, the same old deny. Are you sure? Dude, I trust you, I just don't trust anybody else. What about, what's her name? Jesse's girlfriend, she was there by herself, which was weird. Maybe they just broke up and she was looking to date rape some guy like me by slipping LSD into the drink. No luck though. Nobody had poisoned my drink, and there was no reason to suspect anybody did. Yet what explanation was there for a disappearing crazy guy? For the next few days I didn't think anything of it. Life slowly got back to normal. I didn't really think of the creepy incident on the train. I hung out with my friends, I went to work, I drank at some bars. I was even able to take the subway without remembering what happened just a few days prior. And then the weird stuff started happening. Just a light brush against my body here, a soft whisper there, an occasional breath. It felt like there was someone behind me, but whenever I turned to look, there was nobody there. Each time that it happened though, I was reminded of the subman's declaration. There is a man behind you. A few days later, I'm walking home after buying some cigarettes. I not only feel a breath, but I hear it directly behind me, like somebody's face is only a few inches away from my neck. My arms jerk backwards, expecting to push away some horrible creeper, but I only find thin air, and I whirl around to find a completely empty street. And terrified, I run straight home and I get into bed, too scared to think about showering or brushing my teeth. Thankfully, the feeling is gone. I'm lying face up and the mattress feels soft and safe against my back. I don't dare turn to my side, for the fear that the man will come back, hovering over me like some ghastly, evil apparition you always see in the horror movies. For a few weeks after, nothing had happened, and I started to feel better. Unknowingly, I'd become the butt of some jokes, people thinking that I'm doing acid again. I keep telling them I don't do that shit anymore. I took this stuff years and years ago, but only a couple of times. And there's no way that it's a flashback. People ask me that so many times it pisses me off. No one came forward saying that they had drugged my drink, so I assumed it was the one desperate lonely girl in the bar, hoping I'd become woozy and she'd be able to swoop in and save me. But then, I began getting this weird feeling that somebody was actually watching me, behind me, just staring at me. a man behind me. I would be walking down the street and swear that the man was following me, but only to turn back and see nothing. The worst of these incidents was in a restaurant with my date Julie. Immediately after sitting down, I got that feeling again. I sense him sitting at the table behind me, and I feel his eyes burning holes in the back of my head. The man is here in the restaurant, watching me with that cold, obsessive stare. That terrifying expression, half a grin, half a growl. He has bloodshot eyes, wide open and staring, and crazy, untamed white hair. He is wearing a disheveled vintage wool coat. Don't ask me how I know this, but for some reason I just do. Julie starts complaining about why I keep turning backward, and she wonders aloud why she isn't entertaining enough to keep my attention. But finally, I whisper to her, "There is someone watching me. Some man behind me that is staring at me. Do you see him?" But she just frowns at me and looks over my shoulder, what I expect to be directly into the man's face. I nearly expect her to scream out in terror. Instead, I don't see anything. She looked at me strangely. She thinks I'm crazy, and maybe I am, but I know the man is there. After this night, Julie never called me or sent me a message again. Up to this point, I had thankfully never encountered the man inside of my apartment. It had always been on the street or in some public place. I began to avoid leaving my apartment, and this gave me some small measure of respite. I took off from work and I went for days without leaving my apartment. In those blissful days, I never felt the man's presence. I began telling everybody that I was sick as an excuse to stay in the apartment. If people asked to stop by, I obliged, but I pretended that I had a cough and a runny nose. Dear reader, everybody has a weakness. Some trait that becomes his or her undoing. The one thing that friends and foes alike know and can use to their advantage. For me, this weakness was beautiful women. Hot chicks. I am smitten as always. I'm not terribly ugly and I have good hygiene and a decent paying job. And I try not to be an asshole, so I've done relatively well in the dating game. But I am currently single, and most of my friends know this. So my friend Jimmy sends me a text and a picture. "Asshole, I won't forgive you for this." The text read, "Dude, this hot girl wants to meet you." The picture, sure enough, is a smoking hot Italian chick, college age, my absolute favorite. I text back, "She wants to meet me or she wants to do more with me." "Keep it in your pants, dude," she said meet, but maybe more, I don't know. I sent her your picture and she seemed really into you. "Okay, sounds good. Where should I meet her?" "Come to my party, you're both invited. 7 p.m. tonight, my place." As it turns out, there's no girl. Jimmy took the pic from some dating site and baited me into coming to his lame-ass house party in Queens. He tells me everybody has been asking why I've been so antisocial lately, but I'm too pissed off to care. I just want to go home. As I turn to leave, that's when I feel it. It hits me like a brick. Oh, so familiar, but yet still so terrifying. The man is here. The man is behind me, somewhere staring. I turn and I see him. Or rather, I half saw him for an instant before somebody passed in front of him. And by the time the person had moved, he was gone. But I swear that I had saw him, and I knew him instantly even though I had never actually seen him before. Crazed, wild white hair. A head that was slightly too large and bloodshot red eyes, wide and insane. And his grin. An expression that could either be a grin or a growl, impossible to tell. He was about average height, probably as tall as me. Jimmy had been insisting for several minutes that I tell him about my problems, completely oblivious to the horror on my face. Finally, I say to him, "Fine, Jimmy, the reason is, I've been avoiding someone, and he's here at your party." Jimmy gives me a weird look and starts looking around, confused. "Dude, you know everybody here. Who are you talking about?" "A man, a crazy white-haired man that just stares at me, with his horrible grin on his face. I think he's stalking me." Jimmy laughs. "Is it like some gay guy or something?" This pisses me off. "No, Jimmy, it's not some gay guy. I wouldn't even care if it was some gay guy. I'd love it in fact if it was just this. No, this guy is like some psycho killer, man. He just looks at me like he's hunting me. Like he knows that I can't get away and all I have to do is leave the house and he'll find me. Okay, Jimmy says, humoring me. Let's go find this psycho killer and at the very least kick him out of the party. He leads the way, room by room, noticing every person that we pass. I don't feel the man anywhere, but I'm sure he's in the house somewhere. All of a sudden, I get the same overwhelming sense of dread. He's behind me, I'm sure of it. I turn around and I see a closed door. Dude, what's in there? I whisper, pointing at the door. That's a closet, John. And Jimmy answers. He's in there. I'm sure of it. I look at Jimmy and I can tell he knows that I'm not messing with him. I'm genuinely terrified and it's making him really uneasy. He asks the people in the room if they saw anybody go into the closet, and everybody answers either no or that they weren't paying attention. Jimmy slowly creeps up to the door. As he gets closer, the rest of the party around me seems to fall away, as if there is nothing but me and Jimmy in the door, and the man. Jimmy gets within 5 steps and I can't help it. I freak out. I know that the man is behind the door and that he's coming for me. He seems almost gleeful, like he's been toying with me the whole time, but now he's ready to come for me. For real. I turn and I run as fast as I can out of the house. I vaguely hear Jimmy screaming at me that there's no one there, that the closet is empty, but it doesn't matter. I know that the man is there, and I know that he's coming for me. My lungs are nearly bursting as I reach the subway entrance. I hop over the entrance rail and just barely make it out of the train as the door closes a second behind me. I turn back, exhausted. The man has stopped. He's above the steps at the subway entrance, standing just out of sight. But he knows, and more importantly, I know that I've escaped. For now at least. I sigh, letting the fear drain from my body. There was only one person on the train with me. A big birthy guy, dark brown beard in his mid-30s. Probably had been to the gym every day since he was 15. Just on a whim, I went up next to him and I said, "Dude, there's a man behind you." He looked at me and his face crunched up. For a second I felt like I was gonna get punched, and then he bellowed, "Screw off, you're crazy, man." I couldn't help but laugh. Yeah, it sounded so stupid. I threw my hands up defensively. "Sorry, man, I'm just drunk. Don't beat me up." I didn't have a drop of liquor in me. I hadn't had a single drink since the other night on the train when all this had started. When I get out of the train, a gust of cold wind blows past me as the door to the train closes. My brain screams in terror. The man is there. Somehow he is here, and we both know that now I'm alone. I bolt up the stairs into the night. I don't dare look behind me for the fear of what I see, but I know what's happening. The man is giving me a slight head start, but he is now running, sprinting down the street at an unnaturally fast pace. He is going to catch me. I can feel it. I have my keys in hand as I make it to my apartment building, and I jam the key into the lock. I sneak a glance back. The street is dark, but I can see the hazy outline of his shape as he runs toward me, his white hair flapping up and down with each step. I finally get the door open, hurry in, and I slam the door behind me. Relief washes over me so quickly that I almost black out. My heart is pumping a mile a minute, and I'm gasping like a madman. But I can't help but laugh. I feel safe now. Looking out of the window, I see him. Or I don't see him, but I know that he is there. He is standing in the darkness, just slightly beyond the range of the nearest street lamp. If I focus hard, I can barely see the outline of his white hair. After this incident, I stopped pretending to be sick. I didn't go out, and when people asked why, I gave them no reason. I took some phone calls, but I did not let people into my apartment, even if they visited and knocked on the door. Other people came and went, so I couldn't prevent the man from getting into the building, but I sure as hell wasn't going to let him into my apartment. If my friends insisted that I open up, I just got angry with them until they left. Slowly but surely, the inevitable happened. I made it through everything in my fridge, and then all the canned goods that I had stocked up, and then everything in my freezer. The last day before my hell really started, I had nothing but a bottle of whiskey. Whiskey is made from grain, right? It's like eating a loaf of bread. I downed half of it. Didn't help. I was still hungry as all hell. I can't help it, I cave. I order takeout. After about half an hour, the Chinese delivery guy arrives, and I press the button to let him in the door. In less than a minute, I hear his footsteps. My stomach is grumbling in anticipation of getting some real, actual food. As my doorbell rings, I stare out through the peephole. It's an Asian kid, either late high school or early college age. As I open the door, he gets a look at me and gives a start. Suddenly, I become very self-conscious. I probably look like a mess. I haven't really been taking care of myself. $10.30, he says to me. I get a 10 and a $5 bill and I thrust it into his hand and I snatch my food. Thanks, I don't need any change, I say, eager to just close the door. Thanks, man, the kid says, smiling, and I smile back briefly and I start to close the door. But then, just before it closes completely, I notice it. His smile, his grin, his growl. The man, he's the man. I stare out of the peephole and my breath catches in my throat. There is no one there. I look down and I stare at my open hands. There is no food. Suddenly, my apartment is chilly. The man is not here, but something still feels terribly wrong. Like some protective barrier has been broken, and now I'm at the mercy of him. Like the lighting has changed. The sunset colors outside of my window seem more pale and foreboding than usual. Cold and hungry, I lock both the locks of my front door and I hurry into my bedroom. Under my covers, I sigh as a feeling of safety returns. I try to reassure myself. Even if the young delivery guy was a horrible man, he is still outside. My sleep that evening is dreamless, but I still wake up with a start, drenched in cold sweat. It is now completely dark outside. I look at the clock and it says 4:17 a.m. and my bladder is completely full, like a tight water balloon that could burst at any moment. When I can't stand it any longer, I leap out of the covers and I hurry into the bathroom. I start peeing and it is the most glorious pee that I've ever had in my life. I stand there for even a minute after I had finished, sighing with relief. Finally I wash my hands, deciding I'm just going to go back to bed. Screw the fact that I haven't eaten anything today. I'm feeling slightly nauseous and I realize it's because I'm hungover from the whiskey. As I leave the bathroom, I notice that there is a weird light in my apartment, and that's when I see it. My front door is wide open. With a strangled yell, I rush over and I slam it shut with a ferocity that surprises even me. It's no use though. He's here. The man is here. He is behind me. I turn on the light, but the man is nowhere. He is behind me. No matter where I turn, he's always behind me. Finally, I catch my reflection in a mirror. I stare at myself. I can see the wild terror in my eyes, in my heaving chest as my breath rushes in and out. But I see behind me and he is not there. Not there. For a moment, my mind can't resolve this conflict. I flip-flop between this overwhelming mental sensation that the man is behind me and the visual proof of the mirror that he is not. First the mirror is truth and then a lie. Truth and then a lie. This conflict is strangely comforting. I go right up to the mirror and I look past my reflection into the room behind me. He's not anywhere in the room, and yet I know in my mind that he is there, that the man exists. If I can just make it to my bed, I know that I'll be safe. I dash away from the mirror and into my bedroom to hide under the covers. And the relief I feel is short-lived. Even lying on my back, I know that he is there. He is buried under the mattress, just underneath me, and I feel his arms coiling around my ribcage. Even though my head is against the pillow, I can feel his breath against the back of my neck. I scream and I jump out of my bed and into the corner of my room. The man stays buried in my mattress. Suddenly he sits up, staring at me with those same intense, angry eyes, and his mouth locked in a grinning growl. I can't look up. I'm too scared, but I know what he looks like and what he's doing. He cocks his head slightly and he whispers, "No escape." Dear reader, you may have felt fear before, but you don't know fear the way I knew it in that instant. To have the man staring at you, and you knowing that you can't escape, frozen in fear. I sat like that literally, feeling like that for hours, but it might as well have been days. The man never moved, never said anything else, but he just sat there, half buried in my bed, head cocked and bloodshot, angry eyes staring at me. There I sat in my corner, my head down, completely paralyzed, cold sweat dripping from my forehead. The sun came up. Something was weird about him though, like the light was different for him than it was for everything else in the room, as if the sunlight was not reflecting off him properly. After feeling overwhelming fear for so long, other thoughts finally started to creep into my mind. He is feeding off of my fear, yet he hasn't really done anything. He has looked at me creepily, he has chased me down, but he hasn't actually done anything physically to me. Somehow I find the courage to stand up and rush out of the room. As I do, I feel him behind me. Every step I take, he takes one too, in perfect lockstep, always close enough that he could wrap his arms around me if he wanted. I figure that I can just get my mind off of him. Maybe if I can just ease the feeling that he's behind me. My phone is nearly dead, but not quite. Grabbing a pair of headphones, I thrust them into my ears and I turn the sound up as high as it can go. And I play a song. Anything just to take my mind off of the man behind me. Nothing But a Good Time by Poison starts blaring in my eardrums. And by the time the lyrics start, it's starting to take an edge off of the fear. Now listen, not a dime, I can't pay my rent. I can barely make it through the week. And by the time the chorus starts, I'm thinking this might work. I might actually just be able to take my mind off of fear. I start to become delusional, that I might be able to break this man's hold on me with the power of rock and roll. And don't need nothing but a good time. How can I resist? Ain't looking for nothing but a good time, and it don't get no better than this. And right as that line ends, my arms twist violently behind me and I feel his clammy, dead hands on my wrist, and cold breath on my neck. "You just think you can shut me off like that?" comes a cold reptilian voice. I scream as I feel the skin on my back splitting open. I whirl around seeing a bloody butcher knife on the table. To this day, dear reader, I try not to argue that the slash on my back could not have possibly been self-inflicted due to its angle. But doctors noted that my arm was twisted as well, allowing for the possibility that I slashed my own back. They don't believe me. Dear reader, that the arm twist and slash in my back were both inflicted by the man. Still feeling the man directly behind me, I grab the bloody knife and I whirl around, expecting the knife to cut into the man's face. But instead I find air. Of course. Still holding the knife, I dash out of my apartment, not bothering to lock the door. I fly down the stairs and out of the building. The man is right on my tail. I run out into the streets, but he is right behind me. Every time I turn, he rotates with me, like some horrifying cartoon character that you just can't shake. I turn around, but he is faster, and still behind. I turn again, but he is still behind me. I turn one more time and I stab downward. One of these times I will catch him, and my knife sinks 6 or 7 inches into an elderly lady's eyeball. So, that's the story. I committed manslaughter. To this day, that is the part I regret the most. I regret that my fear of this man, whether or not he is a hallucination, caused the unintended death of another person. I am sorry beyond what any words can express. Do not look now, do not move. And I would like to once again convey my condolences to Mrs. Carpenter's husband, and her son and her son's family. She did not deserve this, and if I could go back in time,
there is a man behind you right now.
I would turn the knife on myself instead of her, If it had been my death there instead of hers, it would have been better for all parties. And now, dear reader, here I make an apology. Did you look? Or even if you didn't, did you want to? Any slight doubt, any pang of anxiety? If so then, like the young guy at the beginning of the story, I had probably disappeared from my cell. I am sorry for what you will go through, but please believe me when I say I just desperately need relief from the man behind me, even if it means passing him on to a stranger like yourself. Remember that it starts with a brush here and a whisper there. A slight sound, a footstep, passing breath. A rustling you can't explain. A sudden prickle on your back. My only advice: do not ignore him. It only makes it worse. Good luck.